Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome, folks. Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another mini preview, and today we're talking about Critter Kitchen from Cardboard Alchemy with art by Sandara Tang and design by Alex Cutler and Peter C. Hayward. Now, this game is the follow-up to Flamecraft, and when I say it's a follow-up to Flamecraft, I mean that because Cardboard Alchemy seems to be kind of going back and forth between heavier, real hobby games and lighter, more family fare. First, they had Mission Catastrophe, which was a bit of a heavier game. Not heavy, but definitely more of a hobby game, especially with all the modules that were in there. Then we had Flamecraft, which everyone knows and loves. And then we have Andromeda's Edge, and now we're back to Critter Kitchen. And I also say it's a follow-up because with the same artist of Flamecraft, it has some of that same vibe, the same style, and the gameplay is roughly the same weight as Flamecraft. So that's what I mean when I say the follow-up. It's not actually related to Flamecraft in any way, shape, or form, other than everything that I just said. Now, for this video, I'm actually going to be joined at the end by Mrs. the Hungry Gamer, because, well, she had a lot to say about this game, and she was willing to hop on camera and actually talk about it. And so you'll see her thoughts at the end after I do my thoughts, because really you probably care more about what she has to say than what I have to say, so that's how we're going to do this thing. Anyhow, what Critter Kitchen is this is a game where each player is running their own restaurant, and you have your 3 different chefs. I also say it's a follow-up because with the same artist of Flamecraft, it has some of that same vibe, the same style, and the gameplay is roughly the same weight as Flamecraft. So that's what I mean when I say the follow-up. It's not actually related to Flamecraft in any way, shape, or form, other than everything that I just said. Now, for this video, I'm actually going to be joined at the end by Mrs. the Hungry Gamer, because, well, she had a lot to say about this game, and she was willing to hop on camera and actually talk about it. And so you'll see her thoughts at the end after I do my thoughts, because really you probably care more about what she has to say than what I have to say, so that's how we're going to do this thing. Anyhow, what Critter Kitchen is this is a game where each player is running their own restaurant, and you have your 3 different chefs. There's a boar, a lizard, and a mouse. So the mouse has wings. And you're going to send them out to the different vendors around town, and what they're going to do is they're going to pick up ingredients. Because what's going to happen is, at the end of the game, some big famous critic is going to show up. And in the video that you see up in the corner of the screen right now, we were playing with the kangaroo chef. And each of the chefs is going to have some kind of different ability that they have. The kangaroo is very simple. It just means all of your 6s are actually 9s, because, you know, down under, it's upside down. Ha ha ha. And at the end of the game, you're going to have to serve them a 7-course meal. And there will be points, stars, awarded to whoever is able to serve the best meal. However, each of the critics also has their own personal preference. And each one has 3 of these, and they may be something along the lines of, for the game that we played, your cheese course had to be a higher value, a higher number than however many courses you serve. So if you serve 7 courses, you had to have at least a 7-value cheese. If you do that, you got some extra stars. And as I said, each critic will have 3, and they will change every time you play the game. But in addition to that, as you're going through, you're going to have your various services, your lunch service and your dinner service and all of those things to go through. And as you play through each round of the game, 1 more card's going to be revealed, and that's going to give you an idea of what it is that you need to prepare to serve. So each round, you're going to secretly pick what 3 locations you're going to send your different chefs to, and then you'll all reveal, you'll place them out, and the smaller critters get to go first. And they'll pick their 1 thing, and the lizards will get 2 things. And if you're tied, there's a little simple tiebreaker, and you'll pick kind of in order. So if both of us had our lizards at one spot, and I had the tiebreaker, I would pick the first thing, then you would pick the second thing, I would pick the third, you would pick the fourth, and then if there's other critters after that, they would kind of get to pick up all the leftovers. And depending on how many players you're playing with, there are more or less locations that you can go to. However, there's always going to be 2 locations out there. There's always going to be the soup truck, where you can go to the soup truck and you can pick up soup, as you can imagine. And soup is kind of a catch-all wild you can use for anything that you would like, except for the critic, who's very particular and isn't interested in any soup. And then there will always be the black market, which you can get all kinds of stuff there, but you're never going to know what it is you're going to get until you're there. So it's kind of a random stuff comes out and you can take it. And then there will also be, in some games, and you'll see this in the image that you see up on the screen, there is the Chef Academy. And this is a module that you can add. And in the Chef Academy, anything that's not purchased winds up over there and can be picked up later at the Chef Academy, but there's also what are called zoo chefs. And zoo chefs are one-round workers that whoever gets there first and gets them will get to use, but they have special powers that go along with them. And now we should also point out there's also several other modules that you have that you can use in the game. There is an ice module, there is a sauces module, there's an organic food module, and there is a tofu module, and I feel like I'm actually forgetting one more. But lots of modules that you can add into the game. And so you're going to go around for 3 rounds, sending your chefs out, bringing back ingredients, and then you're going to serve. And as you go through, you'll see, people want the tuna melt. So for the tuna melt, you're going to need cheese, you're going to need bread, and you're going to need fish. And they're also going to want surf and turf. So you're going to need fish, and you're going to need mushrooms, and you're going to need meat, etc., etc. There's going to be 3 of them, and you're going to serve those up. And if the value, because each of the different ingredients has a value between 2 and 7, if you reach a high enough value, you're going to get X amount of stars for that dish, i.e. points. And you have 3 of those, then you will get to keep a couple of ingredients in your fridge, and then you'll do it again. 3 different courses you're trying to serve over 3 rounds. You'll serve those 3, then you'll get to carry over a few more items to be prepared for the critic. You'll get to go shopping one more time, critic's going to show up, and boom, you're going to serve them, and you're going to score up a whole bunch of different things, and you're going to see who has the most stars to win the game. So, what do I like about this game? First off, I really like games that have this blind selection of where you're going. It reminds me in some ways of Guildmaster, which, as you know, I love that game, but I love this blind selection of where you're going. And I really like that there is this hard decision of deciding who you're going to send, because if you really want something at a location, you better send your mouse. But of course, maybe you're at the back of the tie break. So maybe, it's kind of a bust to do that. Or maybe you want to try to get the zoo chef that's over at the Chef Academy if you're playing with that module. So you're going to send your fast guy over there. But again, at that time, maybe you're at the top of the tiebreaker. But of course, by the time you get to the end, maybe some other tiebreak has occurred and now you're not at the front anymore. So there's all these choices that can be made, and you're trying to decide what other players might do and balance that with what it is that you actually need. I always like that in games, and I think this one does it particularly well. And with the added bonus of each of the different workers having a different carrying capacity and different speed, I think it's very, very clever, and it constantly makes for hard choices every single round. I really like that. I like the speed of the game. It is very, very fast if you're playing with no modules whatsoever. I mean, it is lightning fast. Aha! The other module, there are the star chefs that you can be. For example, maybe it's Anthony Bourdain or Bobcat Flay. Those kinds of things. I knew there was another module I was forgetting. So, but if you're not playing with any of these different modules, it's a super, super fast game. And if you are playing with the modules, it's not really much slower. It's a little bit slower, but not a lot. So it's a very fast game, fairly easy to understand if you already are familiar with how worker placement works and those kinds of things. So all of that I like. I like the look. It's a very, very good looking game. It's super, super cute. Sandara's art is just fantastic. Now, for me, I think I might like the Flamecraft art a little bit more, but that's just because I love dragons a lot, and they're just so full of joy, all of those dragons. But the only thing I can compare it to, I'm like, oh, I think I like this a little bit better when it comes to kind of cute, whimsical art, is her art. So it's fantastic. It's just fantastic art. It's brilliant. The next thing I'll say, is, and I've alluded to this already, is I like all these little modules. I think the modules just add so much to the game, and they add a lot of variety that will keep someone like me wanting to come back. Someone who maybe generally likes a little bit of a heavier game, and I do, I can keep coming back to this because the modules mix it up enough to where I feel like I'm having interesting choices that I'm being able to make. For me, I love having the player powers that come with the star chefs, and I love the zoo chefs. I think those are just fantastic. I really, really enjoy those because, especially the zoo chefs, because of how it changes it up every single round. Just really, really cool. And I also like the constantly changing win conditions, because you have to find out these rumors. What does the chef like? And you have to find that out because you don't know at the beginning of the game. And so you constantly have this other thing you're trying to work with. And there's enough of those cards that they're always going to be very, very different every single game. I think all of that works just fantastically. So what are my quibbles with the game? The first quibble that I have is at 2-player, and I've now played this game, I think at every single player count. I haven't played solo, but every single player count from 2 to 5. And I think and I like it at all the player counts, but I do think at 2-player it is the least interesting for me. And that's because you don't have as much of the second guessing yourself, because you just have one person you're dealing with and one person you're going to run into. And you don't feel like you run into each other as much as you do when you're playing like a 4 or 5-player game, when you're just constantly, there's people at every single location, and a little time when you are the only person in a location just feels so amazing. Or when you get there to a spot and you get the thing because there was a tiebreak earlier on, and somehow you predicted this tiebreak earlier on with 4 people, and then by the time we got to the end, you're now at the front. You don't have that there. My next quibble with the game is, for someone like me, who again likes something a little bit heavier and plays a lot of games. I mean, I am different than the average person probably buying this game. You really, I think, need to use some of the modules in the game to give it the depth of gameplay that I think myself and most of the type of people that I play with really enjoy. Now, to be very clear, that is very much a preference thing, and I try not to talk too much about my own personal preferences, but I know a lot of people who watch are similar to me in what their preferences are. I find you actually kind of need to put in some of those modules to really be able to really get the most out of this game. Which brings me to the last thing. There's one module that does not exist that I so wish existed. I wish there was something to be done with the different locations where they had something unique about them. And so that's just a wish list. And is that a fair quibble? Probably not. And maybe it's a stretch goal. I have no idea. But I just wish there was something there. I'm putting it out there because I know Peter Vaughn watches every single review and preview that comes out there. So maybe he'll do something about it. I don't know. I wish that was there. But so there you have it, folks. That is Critter Kitchen. All in all, I like this game. For a game that is lighter, simpler, and easy to get to the table, I think it's pretty darn good. And then when you start adding in those modules, it becomes eminently more interesting and more crunchy and has some real depth to it. That is one that I think is going to come back to the table over and over for me. In fact, if I didn't have to send on the prototype, I would be playing this more because, well, it's a fun game and I can play this with just about anybody. But before I wrap this whole thing up, you really want to know what Mrs. the Hungry Gamer thinks. So here she is.
So I just finished playing Critter Kitchen, and I loved it. It was super fun. The puns were everything. I also really liked how I could have little mini wins with each of the plates and getting all the ingredients and making sure everything was checked off. But then the critic plate at the end gave this culminating, satisfying, give me all the points kind of win. So that also felt really good, which made it just a little bit easier when I lost by 4 points to the Hungry Gamer. But it's really saying something that I still like the game even though I lost, because generally that is not the case, which is why we play mostly collaborative games. I thought it was a little less fun in the 2-person version where we had to go for the zoo chef, not sous chef, zoo chef. Pretty much every round, because if I wasn't going for it, he was going for it, and then he'd get extra stuff, and I wouldn't. So I felt like in the 2-player game we just did, that you had to do that every time. So that was less than ideal. I also thought it was a little strange that they were pairing white wine with steak, but this is a world where mice can fly, so maybe it works great there. Who am I to say? But overall, had a really good time. Totally loved it. I love Flamecraft. It's so cute. Oh my gosh. But this is almost as cute, and I think it's a little bit maybe even more fun than Flamecraft. So, but yeah, I will definitely be playing this one again.
Now, I don't know if we're going to see her in a lot of these videos. It's only when she's really excited about a game that she's actually been even willing to consider it. But there you have it, folks. That is Critter Kitchen. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, and share. Maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.